Hello and welcome to our Game Starter level design. I'm Annika, project assistant at Gamecity Hamburg. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Before we start with the main topic of the event, I would like to bring two upcoming events by Gamecity Hamburg to your attention, which might be of interest to some of you. So first we have the Games Lift Graduation 2021, which will take place on December 2nd, 2021, starting 4:30 p.m. And yeah, there are the 5 teams who participate right now in our Games Lift Incubator program will show off their projects, present what they've accomplished during the 3 months of the program, and yeah, share what they've learned from it. For that, you can participate either on site or via live stream, and all information for that can be found on our website. The second one is the Portfolio Slam Game Art, which will take place on December 14th, starting 6:30 p.m. There, 3 game artists who are students or career starters will go up on stage and present their portfolios, and our expert jury, which consists of 3 industry experts in the area of game art, will give feedback and share some insights into how to improve the portfolios, and will basically give some insights into what experts and companies look for when looking through portfolios by applicants. So that will be very valuable probably for the 3 participants, as they get very personalized feedback. But you can also participate as an audience member and probably will learn some valuable things from that too, just not as personalized. But if you have a game art portfolio which you would like to show and for which you would like to get some feedback, you can, until the end of the month, apply as an audience member, as a presenter to showcase your portfolio. Or if you don't have a portfolio right now, or are still working on it, or aren't comfortable with that, or something like that, you can also register as an audience member. And information for all of that too is on our website. So let's head over to the main topic of the day. This is our schedule for today, and yeah, I will just in a second introduce our panel, and then we will start with our prepared questions, and you can at any time ask questions via the chat on YouTube or our website, wherever you may be participating from and watching the stream from, and we will try to incorporate as many of your questions at appropriate times during the event. And yeah, then our panel, our awesome experts, are Isabelle Blanken, who is a level designer at Deep Silver FISHLABS, Justin Zwack, who is a game and level designer at King Art Games, and Alina Dreesmann, who is a level designer at Deck 13. So let's just quickly stop this presentation. Yeah, and we would like to have our experts introduce themselves. So you 3, tell us a little bit about yourself. So where do you work and what is your job there? And how long have you been in this industry?
Okay, since no one is really starting, I will go first. Hello everyone, my name is Isabelle Blanken and I'm a level designer at Deep Silver FISHLABS, and I've been working on Chorus there, and currently I'm working on an unannounced project. I've been in the industry for about a little bit under 7 years now, where the last 5 years I've been a level designer. I'm a very pretty much international developer. I've worked in Taiwan, where I worked at the Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition. I've worked in Sweden at Star Stable Entertainment, where I worked on a still unannounced project. And now I'm here in Hamburg working for Deep Silver FISHLABS. Yeah.
Cool. Then I take over. Hi there. Yeah, my name is Justin Zwack. My pronouns are he and him. So I'm a game and level designer, as already been said. So it's a bit let's say a bit different maybe, because I'm also doing a little bit of game design and also level design. Whereas for most of the time, especially in my last project, Iron Harvest, real-time strategy game, in the last section, I was mainly focused on level design. And yeah, I'm working at King Art Games, still like got there 4 years ago and started there as like an intern, and then stayed for all the production phase of Iron Harvest, and now working on one of our new projects. And there I also do a mix between like game and level design at the same time.
Yeah, hello, my name is Alina. I'm super happy to be here today. I'm the last one in the round. I'm surprisingly also a level designer, working at Deck 13 for I think around about 6 years now. I started working there very early during my studies as an intern also in the game design department, but there was already clear that level design is definitely something that I'm interested in. And then after writing my bachelor thesis, actually in cooperation with the project I was working on, which was the Search one, I simply stayed in the company, and since then I'm actually staying at Deck 13, shipped the Search 1 and the Search 2, including DLCs with them, and currently we're working on an also unannounced project. And sadly, I cannot say more to that project like this. And since then, I'm working as a level designer. That's it from me.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very interesting. So you three, how did you get into the games industry, and how did you basically get the idea to get into making games? Maybe Justin start.
So yeah, I think like for me it was something that I wanted to do for like quite a while. Like as a child, I was already interested in what's like behind games, behind my favorite games, and why certain things work and don't work, and also like doing a lot of like board games, and also trying to establish my own like little board games as a kid as well. So it was pretty clear to me that if there's a chance that I can work on those big cool games, then I want to do that. And like especially in Germany, there weren't that many like schools and such, but it was slowly developing, and we got a lot more like universities that do those programs now. And yeah, I just started to study at a university in Mittweida, University of Applied Sciences, and there in Mittweida we like have a bunch of different projects where like we're doing just games basically every year. And this is where I started to like specialize more and more into design, and where I know, okay, this is definitely the path that I want to take. And then like similar to Alina, I like finished my studies, had an internship at King Art Games, finished my bachelor thesis in combination with King Art, and then stayed there as a designer.
Yeah, I mean, if I simply quickly add to that, because it's quite similar for me. Surprisingly, I also like games when I was small, but actually for me at least, it was not the super big desire to actually make games from the very beginning. It's a little bit jokey actually. When I finished school, I was thinking about, okay, what are you going to do next? To be honest, I wanted to go to the police or become a lawyer. First of all, I thought something about that. Then I heard about this gamey thing. And it was also about the time where it was quite difficult to do this on a study-based way, where it's not super expensive or not super exclusively. So I just, yeah, I don't know, got informed about this, looked at it, and there it sounded like, yeah, it's quite hard to get into this industry. And then I simply made a bet with my mom, because she said like, you won't gonna make it. And I was like, yeah, sure, I can. Actually, I got a place, got to the Media Design Hochschule in Düsseldorf in Germany, actually made a bachelor degree of science, then actually in game design. And yeah, actually liked the job, and making, you know, this kind of making your hobby your job thing work kind of out for me at the end. So it's literally very similar to that. And I think nowadays that's path many students also can choose and do. And I'm quite happy to see that it has become at least a little bit easier in general for people to not say get into the industry, but in general the appreciation of studying game design. It's the topic of game design, game art, programming, all that kind of stuff is a little bit more known, and it evolves a little bit more into something you don't necessarily have to pay a lot of money for, but can simply do that. A lot of students, teams, student programs are coming up, and that's actually quite nice to see. So I appreciate that quite a lot. But that was also somehow how I got into that. Yeah, then did my internship as said before, and then landed at Deck 13 and stayed with them.
Yeah, I can go next. My path is quite different from the both of you. I actually studied to become a teacher, a high school teacher in English and IT. And then I realized I didn't want to do that. So then I studied something entirely different again, which was IT management, which again was something that I was maybe not sure of, because to me, being part of a game studio and like becoming a game developer was never a realistic goal. It's kind of the thing like you see like while you watch a movie or play a game, like, oh, that would be so cool to be part of that. I know I'm never gonna be that, but it's cool to dream that up. So then basically when I graduated, I started out as an IT support officer, and I was looking into opportunities abroad. And then I came across a playtester position at Big Point, which I got recommended. And then I took that one, and that's basically how I got into the industry. So I started out as a playtester. Then that didn't 100% work out. The project got canceled at the end of the year, like after I think 7 to 9 months, something like that was there. So then I got shifted to a different project when I was, that's when I was product management. But I then knew I don't want to be part of the, you know, upper management or sales team or anything like that. I want to make a game. I want to be part of the development. I want to make fun experiences. And that's when I made the leap after like a year and a half to level design. And I stuck with it ever since. I'm very happy to be here. So yeah, it's a very different path, but as viable, I think, as the others as well. Yeah, that's it.
You're not teaching like in school, but you're basically teaching the players now.
Yeah, I'm teaching them how to use a gun.
Yes.
Hopefully you didn't learn how to teach that as a teacher. So that's really fascinating and really different paths. Thank you. Yeah, now my colleague Helen, who is also a project assistant, I'm sorry, at Gamecity will take over. So, hi Helen.
Hi, project manager, I wish. We'll get there. No, yeah, thank you so much. Now that we've learned about your origin stories, I would love to know more about like why are you in level design? Like what makes you go into work every day and be a happy part of your team? And I would love to know first, what is your favorite part of the level design process? Maybe Alina, you could go first.
Sure. So actually, we have now some questions up on the table, but let's go with the what's interesting about level design, because I think that's a good party starter for, okay, why are we actually all doing and enjoying this? Because the interesting thing about level design, next to all the other interesting topics that involve around game development, because there are a lot of awesome departments and jobs in game development in general. I think at least for me, what I can say is the interesting part about level design is, let's say there are two striking aspects. One is we are kind of at the core of game development, at least from what I see it, and where the company and where the 13 kind of sees it is because here so many things and threads come together. Because we're not only one and only providing the gameplay space, actually every experience is taking place in. We are also therefore connected to all the other departments, are somewhat in a constant exchange with every other department, with programming, with narration, with art, with every game asset actually taking place and coming together somewhat in level design. We are therefore kind of important from beginning to end of the project, combine a lot of things. At the same time, we have therefore a lot of responsibilities that come along with them. And besides that, it's a nice incubator for being creative, because we are actually creating spaces the game takes place in. So as long as you don't have a game which completely can exist without having actually something you need to play in. So if it's not an an audio exclusive game, which are also awesome, we are somewhat kind of a key contributor to the overall game design, game experience thing. And that's the interesting part about it. I think it's the collaboration, it's the responsibility we have, and with that also the creativity to do such amazing things with the other parts of the development team together, at least for me.
Thank you. Justin, do you have anything to add, or is it exactly the same for you?
Yeah, I think like the collaboration part is definitely like huge. I think like as a level designer, you are definitely like talking to a lot of different departments, a lot of different people, and I do enjoy like this part a lot, and especially when I look at like as a level designer, when you work on like a block out a level concept or anything, and you already have some like ideas what it could be, you then go to, for example, like a level artist and try to get him like on board with like all the great ideas that you might have. The cool thing is that they then just like come with probably even better ideas, and like you're combining them into something that is really unique and a lot of fun. And then when you start to work on it, maybe you kind of like see, does it really work? But at the end, when you like get it back, and then some magic happens, and you get like a lot of like the level artists do their job, like the environmental artists make like beautiful vistas or whatever. You have lighting come together, you have sound that comes together into it, and like all of that combines into one experience, as like Alina said, and that's just like magical.
Yeah, I can only agree with what Alina and Justin said. They pretty much covered it already. I think a social aspect is very big. Just the feeling of like everything comes together really nicely, and you see and you feel just everyone being very like excited about the stuff that we're all making together. A thing that I just really love about level design in general is it's a very varied position. Like every day can be different. Some days you're like very heavily into like creating geometry, making sure the play space is flowing well and it feels good. You're creating blockouts, all that kind of stuff. Then another day you're focusing on missions or quests and just making sure that feels good, and you know the player is rewarded for doing stuff. And then on other days You're basically just mostly talking to people and just making sure that everyone is on board. So you're in a lot of meetings sometimes. And those three aspects, like social, missions, and then the geometry levels, like it's just a lot of variation, and all of those things are very fun and cool in itself. But because we get like they switch up so much, you never really get exhausted of like, oh no, I have a week with only meetings. Oh no, I have like weeks with only missions and so on. Like it swaps itself out pretty well. So that's something that also keeps me very excited to come to work.
You're really good at selling your job. You're almost making me want to change career paths, but maybe some of our viewers feel the same. So let's tell them a bit more about your job profile. You already said your jobs are quite varied, or your days vary quite a lot. But perhaps you won't mind telling us anyhow how your workflow or what your workflow looks like, especially maybe the difference between a project like at the start and the end of a project. Justin, would you mind to start?
Yeah, sure. So there are definitely, like as we said, a lot of varieties, and even like from like just the general workflow can change a lot by the studio, by the project, and there are a lot of difference in what actually like is part of the design or the level designer. And like in most cases, you will definitely have some kind of let's say pre-production or like preparation step in the beginning, where it's about like more or less defining what you actually want to do, also like trying out different things, prototyping a lot, doing some like just basic tests and set up different values. Maybe you want to set up your metrics on what the game will work on. So like how big is a door? These things are like more the basic stuff that you need to actually then continue working on in your like actual levels. And then also you want to have probably like if you're working on a specific level, you want to have a description and reference for the individual like spaces. Like, does it take place in I'm not sure, like at in the mountains, and then you want to have some references there. What does it like make for, like, how does it influence the gameplay? What opportunities do we have? What kind of like affordances do we want to like show to the player? And there's a lot of like preparation in that part, and then you move up like pitching ideas and like green lighting basically what the actual level will be like. And then doing some more probably like what's the word, like 2D layouts or 3D layouts, and work on your blocking out that space, and also getting like feedback from all different departments and stuff, iterating a lot on what it actually plays like, because you want to get a playable state rather quickly, because our like just in general, like game and level design, everything like is a lot based on like how it's actually playing. And I think then you need to start and get a first version rather quickly, and then being able to iterate on like game flow, general like progression, what the mission beats are, how narrative can like fit into what you want to do. And then like as you're working on this like space, you will eventually end up being more from like not geometry based, but rather than like going into the logical area, where it's about like scripting different events and like collectibles or whatever, like these kind of things, where it's more about the logic than the geometry that you can perceive. And yeah, I think like for the production throughout like development, there's a lot of planning and such in the beginning. Then there's more like geometry, and then the scripting takes over a little bit more. But one thing that will stick like throughout the whole production is just testing and like iterating. I think that's like happening all the time. Obviously, especially at the end where you need to like polish a lot and try to get like all the bug fixes out and stuff. But yeah, I think that's the gist of what I would consider the workflow.
Yeah, for me, it's basically very similar for the studios I've worked at. There are like a bunch of different phases that most of you probably already heard. So you have like the concept phase, like for a level or mission, where you get your creative director says, hey, this is what I want from the mission. This is what I want from the geometry. Sometimes that's like one line, sometimes it's a whole page. It depends on the studio. So you have that concept, you do that on paper, then you move on to white box, you play architect Lego. So you make your level Lego style, like everything is super blocky. We don't do details. We focus on the flow. Is it feeling right to travel through this? Yes or no? Keep iterating. This is where a lot of change happens in white box, as Justin said. Then comes gray box. We will solidify everything, which is like the flow and gameplay related. And then art starts to really kick in more and starts to define things more. And then you get to alpha, where we just mostly do like small tweaks, and art do their like final pause. They make sure that a house looks like an actual house and not some gray structure. They make sure a tree is not just, you know, a pillar with a blob on top of it. It looks like an actual tree. And that's alpha. And then sometimes you have beta where you have, you know, to solidify bugs and whatnot. And that's usually the process that all missions and levels will go through. Yeah.
Very well said.
Yeah, kind of. I don't want to disagree. It's just super interesting to see that this is partially my workday as well, while at the same time it seems to differ on the execution of things, not on the core of what we're actually doing, but actually I don't really can pinpoint down what an actual workday looks like. It's quite diverse from time to time. What definitely sticks to that, what the other said, is that it's highly depending on which phase the project is actually in. So in the beginning, we have a lot of very creative work when it comes to actually a lot of designing spaces, creating spaces, creating collaboration, getting together. Okay, this is the game. This is it's going to be. What we want to do with that. What are our strains? With who we need to work. Actually, my workday is pretty much also a very big part of it is actually thinking with people, talking with people. We are at Deck 13 at least very fond of working in work groups and work teams together. So we assign actually smaller work groups that work on specific parts of the game. So I'm in very close collaboration with my environment artist who's working on that section, as well as with as we are a combat-centric game with Search, for example, working closely together with combat designers and game systems designers, because this just plays a big role for us. So I think your daily work is a little bit dependent on which kind of game you're actually building, because that logically also determines a little bit which kind of level you're building. Whether the state of production I'm in, I'm somewhat half my day, I would say, in exchange with someone, at least to get things going on, to get information, to get things kicked off, getting status updates for that, because as we now already know, a lot of things come together at our table. We also have to maintain a lot of things and be aware of things, or make other people's aware, so everybody knows what's the state. Kind of that thing. And then what I also can agree on is that the more the project develops, so to say, you of course step a little bit away from the designing phase, go over into the iteration phase, and go more into the creating, actually building, implementing phase, because things then actually also need to come together, need to be built, need to be scripted, and then of course also need to be maintained, bug fixed, all under the same idea of, is it still fitting? Is this the game we want to have? What do we need to change here? Then at some point, hopefully rather sooner than later, play tests come in. So then you get opinions. Okay, is the actually level flow what I was imagining or what we were working on? Is it actually understood by players? Because we know what we're building, but does someone else who's sitting on the screen, who is not sitting the level designer or the artist or whoever sitting next to him themselves and telling them where to go, do they understand it? Then the iteration starts, then we may need to switch, then we may need to, I don't know, play a level from the other side, whatever may happen. And then so the development is actually constantly changing therefore. And whatever feedbacks comes in, whatever fire is burning, the day work can very much vary. But I think on the overall layer, we all have somewhat kind of the same daily life fights in our working phases, but it's really diverse, and that's interesting about the job as well, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much for this insight. It's very interesting that you say you're on some level, everything varies with you, and you say between the three of you, there's a different workflow, but in the end of the day, you're all still doing the same job, I'd say. Yeah, but despite all of this variety, we're wondering if there are any typical challenges you have encountered in most of your projects as a level designer. Isabelle, would you mind to start off?
Yeah, sure. Challenges with level design. I would say a challenge that everyone will come across with is probably time and resources. Sometimes you make something that is just awesome and everyone agrees on or not, and everyone is basically rallied behind that. And then we do the planning. Oh no, it's way too chunky. We need to trim it down. We cannot do this. We need to do something different. That's always a big challenge when certain features or even entire missions do not make it, or they need to be cut down, or they have less resources or stuff like that. And as a level designer, you need to be quite flexible with that. You need to be able to let go of your babies and the things that you've created sometimes, and try to come up with still fun solutions that are the next best thing. And that's not always easy. That can be a challenge, especially if you're starting out. It can be quite difficult letting those things go. But it's also something you get used to and you train yourself on. Okay, we cannot have this. Let's see what we can do with the resources available. So yeah, I think that's like the number one typical challenge for a level designer. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Justin and Alina have something different to say, but I would say that's like my number one thing.
Yeah, I would totally agree to that. This is, I don't know if it's the number one thing, because there are some difficult topics, but I would definitely agree that this is one of the major things we have to be aware of. I would even go as far and say it's not only as yourself being able to let go of your babies, but rather like in general, in level design, I encounter it often that we have, especially when working with several people on a topic, when it comes to designing or brainstorming a system comes up whatsoever, there's just a lot of opportunities that can conclude into very fun situations, into very cool designs, and sometimes just the thing of time, money, budget, it's not doable is something we have to maintain. And at the same time, the bigger the project gets, we also have to be aware that the game needs to feel also consistent. So consistency is another big thing that's actually something we have to tackle, because when you're working with several people on a big project, you have to somewhat balance between, okay, every piece and corner should somewhat feel unique. At the same time, you don't want to build a game that's just built out of puzzle pieces. So systems have to develop, and it should feel like one game at the end, while being built by different people, while maintaining those magical ideas that sometimes fit, and sometimes it's just cool what someone built, but we cannot do it because it simply will not fit into the overall game. So that's quite a balancing act there, actually. And yeah, besides that, it's a lot of expectation management of what can we do, what is feasible, what is not feasible, also when it comes to other systems that connect into there. So as we again have so much constraints and connections to other departments, we at the same time also have to be aware of, okay, what is this department doing, what are we doing, what's going on, is that still actually doable? Because yeah, just a random example, but if you are having like an enemy that is flying and your level is actually not made for flying enemies, that needs to be synced. So you have to be somewhat all the time aware of is what anyone else is doing, or is that what we are doing, working out for ourselves, but also of course for the others. And that's not only the responsibility of one department, but of all. But you know, as you're like kind of building a lot of that stuff, it's somewhat crucial to be simply on the line for a lot of topics to make it one good game that feels right.
Yeah, I just to add to that, I think the point about there's now like a flying character or like flying enemy or such, these things can happen. Like we're making games like where it's not, you don't know what the actual end result will be to 100%, and there will be some like things that come in, and you're confronted with these like situations where you need to find solutions and compromises to certain challenges like all the time. There will be changes in like, hey, we changed the jumping now, so yeah, this means like all the metrics need to adjust, and like your level needs to be spaced out differently, and stuff like this can happen and will happen. Obviously you want to nail those basics done pretty fast, but there will be some changes throughout development, because you get, like been said, like you will get feedback from players, you will get feedback from management and such, and then because of reasons, things will change, and you need to be quite flexible and try to find solutions where possible. And compromises will also be like happening all the time, because you want to, like, for example, you think like from a gameplay perspective, it makes sense that there's like a cover asset directly here on the street, but it does not make sense from a story or narrative perspective or from level art. It just does not work visually, and you always need to like find compromises, find things where it's at least working for one or the other. Like maybe gameplay is higher up than like your narrative reasoning, but maybe there are also some things that you cannot like contest, and then you need to see if you can change the circumstances.
Thank you so much. Like we mentioned before, we are constantly receiving questions from the chat. Usually we have some time at the end to ask them, and that's what we will do. But we got one that is just so perfect at this point, so we're going to sprinkle that in. And yeah, they are asking, level design is most of the times never ending, as you just pointed out as well. How do you know when it's ready for the next step? For example, lightning. Do you have something like a checklist, or is it just a gut feeling? Isabelle, would you like to answer that?
Ideally, we do have a checklist. So per every phase that we do, like say, for example, we're in white box, we have some general goals that we want to solidify, like doing like basic checks, like, okay, can like simple things, even like, hey, can the level or the mission be played from start to finish? That's a big one. Are all assets present, even in, you know, blocky form or whatnot? Are audio triggers there? Are all the, I don't know, is the music working? Stuff like that. So basically, is everything triggered as intended and working as intended, even though it might not look pretty yet or whatnot? So we do have a checklist of all those things that we do want to do. And then when we reach like complete that checklist, it goes into a sign off where, you know, they're like playtest, and this can vary from studio to studio, of course, but basically we check it off by, you know, production and leads are there, and if there are any big problems, like, hey, you're introducing this enemy here, but we're not encountering that enemy yet until later, please change it, stuff like that. So there is like an entire like sign-off process. QA is involved as well. They will play test it. If they have any big questions or it doesn't play out as intended, it will go back to you. And basically once that's signed off, then we go to the next phase, and there we have a different checklist, which is more in detail, and then lights come in way later, usually gray box and alpha. Basic lighting will be only set up in white box, but it will not be much. So every phase does have those different things that we take care of. And the further we're at like alpha, that's where like artists do like start to really polish the assets. But I would say artists are already involved from concept onwards, of course, and they start slightly more intensely working in it, let's say gray box. That's how it's been like for me. Yeah.
Alina, I'd assume you have you also have a checklist at Deck 13, but you also have a different system in place?
Yes, both actually. So of course there is there are specific benchmark or check marks which simply mark a step of production that is reached. There is of course something like a design phase, a concept phase, a prototype phase, an alpha, a beta, a gold master, whatnot. Besides that, I think there has to be distinct between technically functional and actually functional as we intended to be. And I think that's kind of what the question is a little bit aiming when it comes to when you know when it's finished, because of course on the one hand the game needs to be technically functional in the way we want it, but at the same time there's and that's a lot of that's actually true for a lot of especially creative processes when it comes to the point, okay, we could iterate it to death and it would improve to a specific degree, but sometimes you have to pinpoint between it's finished, it's not perfect, because it never will be perfect, we will never reach that point, but what marks finished for us? And I think at least what for us is key is a lot of actual playtesting, giving something when it comes at least to level design, doing a specific step alongside with those so-called checklist points to reach a production gate, let's say it like that, actually building something, giving it to colleagues who are not so much involved into that process of development, giving it to playtest and actually see, is the game working as I intended it to do? Are the players actually following the path I intended them to walk? Are they playing the game as I intend to? And if not, what happens then? What else possibilities come up with player simply playing the game? What are they interested in? Okay, where do we have to shift? So I think that's then somewhat when the focus kicks in, and when to a major degree, I would assume you see the game actually played as you intended it to be played, then you are pretty close to the point where we say, okay, this is a mark of good enough for us, and this is where we put now our refinements in, because you know, words like money, time constraints, all that kind of thing, still having in the back of our minds. I think that's where we then select, okay, how much can we spend on that? How much work do we need to put that? There's also a division between, okay, how important is it for the actual main game? Is it an Easter egg like thingy? Is it a crucial main path thingy? What needs to work for the major part of player audience? Of course, you want to have everything refined and perfect in the end. Sometimes that's truly not possible, but we try to do as best as we can, and then you set simply some focus points and see where you can max out that experience at the very end.
Thank you. I don't know, Justin, do you also have anything to add to this question, or I think
we covered it all. Like,
yeah,
there's definitely the points about like sometimes producers or your leads are just stating, okay, you have to end it. Like, I know you want to polish it. I know you want to do the last little bit thing, but actually we won't need to move on. So yeah, definitely agree.
Some things never change, I guess.
So yeah, I will just take over. Let's talk a bit about teamwork within your team and with the other departments. So the first thing is basically how big is the team of level designers you're working with, and tying into that is a question from the chat. which is if you work with other level designers in the same environment, how do you make, or level, how do you make sure you work into the same direction and apply a similar style? So Alina, would you like to start?
Of course. First of all, I think to get to the team size. So we are actually currently don't let me lie, 5 level designers working equally departed throughout the game. As said, the title is not announced, so I'm not going too much into details how we actually going to do this, but we are currently 5 level designers and an intern. So let's say 5 3/4. No, actually, our interns, we like to work closely with them to involve them into the team as full part members. Of course, they're not such a long time here present at us, but if we have interns, they're not like getting our coffees, especially not with us being in home office in the current situation. But in general, they also become pretty fast, or we try to make them pretty fast team members with their own areas of responsibility. And yeah, to get that as a bridge, we have each of our designers has his own part of responsibility in the game, most likely. Kind of compared to the size we build. So we actually do not have the issue often of shared content, so to say, with 2 people working in the exact same thing. We sometimes have that in the beginning when it comes to design processes, but then we also forced it because we want people then to collaborate on things. And then afterwards, it's actually a lot of self-maintenance, a lot of exchange between the level designers, thinking up, okay, how are we doing things? Several people own also specific topics, elements of, I don't know, let me use some buzzwords like this guidance option. This system is maintained by this level designer, so he proposes it as it is maintained by him, for example, gives it to the others, explains to them, and then somewhat makes sure that it's used all somewhat in the same space. And alongside that, we set a lot of focus on good teamwork, which means also giving people responsibility and trust. So we we do it a lot by exchanging and actually making sure that people are very aware of the constraints they have to work in. So it is secured that it is one piece of game at the end, but then giving each designer the responsibility to, in that kind of field of work out their own creative freedom and stuff and space. And that's actually working for us quite nicely. But it's a lot of self-maintenance at the end of the department itself. So actually full force team playing mode. So this would not be possible with a level designer who's totally against teamwork, so to say. But we also are somewhat careful with the people we have. We have amazing people in the team, but yeah, that's a key focus for us, actually, teamwork.
Yeah, I kind of see like a lot of similarities here. For us, like for the RTS Iron House that we shipped last year, we were mainly, I think, for the production about like 7 or 8 level designers, where we like got more people on board throughout the production, and that's around the number that we had like at the end. And yeah, we also like in our game it was pretty simple. That's like there were just missions with their individual levels. All have like their own designer, like a designer had their own like ownership of this specific level, or like multiple ones. Obviously sometimes this changes and maps get switched around and you need to like take over from someone else, or like also do like some bit of a tandem work, as like, for example, a new intern starts and you want to get them involved, and then you start to work together somewhat, but still it's rather simple because it's so separated from like from each other. Now, like right now, we're working on a different type of game, and there it's like a bit more complex, and we are still like in a pre-production phase where it's more about like exploring and experimenting. There we have just way less level designers right now.
Yeah, I agree. It really, really depends on the project you're working on at and at the company that you're at. Because you have these vast AAA studios where you have a small army of level designers. I personally have not really worked on any huge scale like MMORPGs or whatnot, or at Ubisoft or stuff like that. Like that, there you will have like a small army. But I've been the single level designer at a team, and I've also worked with up to, I think, 5-ish other level designers on a team for a slightly bigger production. So it highly depends. Right now, we're a team of 3 specific level designers on the unannounced project I'm working on. As was said before, like usually it's 1 level designer per their level, their mission. So you will basically never share unless you're getting someone into the flow, like someone that is new or an intern or stuff like that. If not, the maximum I've worked with actively with more than 1 designer was 1 level designer and 1 tech designer, where they basically help you with scripting part or like really specific prototyping. So yeah, but usually you have your section of the map or your specific level, your own map or stuff like that. Yeah. As for the overview and making sure that everything is aligned, usually lead level designer helps with that. I once was called out and another level designer like, hey, you're kind of making the exact same mission. Please don't. So that definitely happened. Usually that's caught very early, or it should be caught very early in concept phase. And like, okay, yeah, we'll not do that. And we basically make something different, or we swap things around. Yeah, on top of that, we also have stand-ups where every morning we kind of try to talk about what we're working on. So that also really helps. Yeah, as a level designer, you should take ownership of your level and mission that you're making, and then often like discussing it with other level designers to see that you're still in line. Another thing I did in the past a lot is when you make the GDD, game design document for a specific mission or level, it also always should have, or for me, it always had a section like, hey, how does this connect to the previous level or mission, and how will it connect to the next one? So then you're basically forced to already talk to those level designers, and that's really helpful. As for the vision of the game, usually creative director has a strong vision that can also be like the level design, not just level design, just the design lead, and that communicates that with the rest of the team. So everyone knows, okay, we're making this type of game. And yeah, it's important that you have someone that shares that vision actively and has a strong vision. Because the stronger the vision, the more coherent of a game that you will create. If the designers can see it in their heads, then you will get it. If they're like, I'm not sure what kind of game we're making, but I'm just making stuff, it's gonna be less coherent, obviously. But yeah, that's basically from my point of view. And lastly, not want to go on too long, we playtest each other's levels in all phases. Like during the sign-offs, there's usually another level designer included, and then we basically playtest and give feedback, which is always very helpful and also keeps consistency. Yeah.
Oh, makes sense. So we have 2 similar questions from the chat, which are both from the viewpoint of a producer. So I will just combine those into one. They ask how a producer can best facilitate progress and work with designers, and how to best improve communication for designers. Have you any insights on that, Isabelle?
Good question. Usually, from my experience, just sitting down a lot, making sure that everything that is required for a mission is early, like mapped somewhere and documented somewhere. And I think having a solid pipeline and solid processes in place, that's like a major key thing. You have to have that. If they're solid and you keep iterating on those, it will make so many more things easier. If you have like a strong pipeline of, hey, a mission, this is how a mission goes from literally concept all the way to final product that will get shipped. And you know at what steps, which departments will need to be required roughly. You can't obviously know how much time you will need for every specific department, but having like those pipelines in place and knowing when to stop, do a check to see if everything is still on schedule, check if everything is still feasible, and doing all those things, I think that is something that definitely helps the production a lot, for sure. So as level designers, you also know what you're working towards, like what the milestones are. Yeah, that's roughly like for me. Maybe you, Justin,
I think the milestone point is definitely important. Like getting the team on board on like what the deliveries are, what like the next steps are, why we are doing certain things. Maybe like there's a reason for doing one thing earlier than others because dependencies to other departments. Stuff like that, like keep the communication pretty open and quite regularly checking, as been said. I think that's definitely a valid point here. Yeah.
At this point, I may sound like a broken record, but not the only, but an important tip I can give you for that is also exchange and synchronization on the topic. So the production team is as essential and as much as every other department part of the development team. So I'm not a super huge fan of having the core development team and the production department being somewhat feeling excluded or whatsoever. Actually, we are relying heavily on the production team to maintain all the planning stuff, especially for us, which does not mean necessarily that they are deciding on my time schedule, but the maintenance of that and the exchange on that and the high level, let's say, synchronization of time schedules of, okay, this is not working out at this section, so level design, we need to adjust this, or I don't know, level design, for whatever reason, we cannot make it, someone is sick, I don't know, it doesn't work out, we have to iterate it. We simply misscheduled. What happens from time to time? We have to adjust somewhere. This shifts literally every corner of the project for everyone else, and this maintenance kind of thing is a lot of the work of a producer, and that's an essential key of the development team, not something as a bystander or someone who's just doing that from afar. So we are very fond of making them actual members of our team, which means production is joining our stand-ups. Production is in everyday exchange with the respective managing positions, being it the lead designers, lead responsible people for that, being in decision rounds, also of course maintaining feasibility. Can we do this? Because production has the overview of that. So yeah. I think key to that is you're part of the team. This is just a part of the job you're taking for other people's, and therefore you are what are words? Your part of the development is not smaller or less important than anyone else. So just be in exchange of the team. If you don't know what's going on, it's your job to know. And then either you get the people to do it, or you have such a pipeline worked on that it's everyday work for you to simply be aware of that. So each time I'm checking on a topic with someone that is not only me and my current small work group, it involves production. Easy as that.
Thank you so much for this insight. And also, I just want to say thank you to our audience for all these wonderful questions. As you might know, the Game Starter series is primarily aimed at people who are just breaking into the industry or who might still be considering whether or not to go into this industry, and who might just have to make the decision whether or not to pursue a degree or what degree they should choose. We heard about your backgrounds already, but when you look around your teams, from your experience, what would you say, what formal education does a level designer actually need? Alina, would you start us off?
I actually think there is no hard requirement for something like that. So we are looking for people who fit in our team and who have an understanding for the job, and who are, of course, during the process of application are feasible for the job. But this does not necessarily mean we need someone with a bachelor, master degree, I don't know. And this does not necessarily mean we need someone who is good at programming, because that's not what our job is about. This does also not mean that you have to have worked on I don't know what big titles and have to be in the industry for several years, but you need to and that does not mean there are no requirements, but what I kind of want to say is that we are aiming for people who understand the job, who fit in the team, and who can enrich our team. And there is just some things beneficial to phrase it like that. So of course, a understanding of player experience. Okay, what is this game about? What is consistent? What feels good? How does the space work? How is space actually functional, workable for us? How do some of the tools work? How does a minimum degree of scripting work? Is there an understanding for some visual understanding of visual languages, because a lot of level design is about player guidance, for example. All those kind of things are super beneficial for that. So if you're actually interested in level and space, in spatial design, everything that comes close to that is somewhat key for you to know, but that does not necessarily mean that you have to so you need to bring that kind of thing into, but it is not bound to, as said, a specific kind of study. We only look for master students or so. That's not somewhat the thing. It's more about what you actually bring with you, I would say.
Justin, do you agree with that, or is that your experience as well?
Yeah, like in general, I think when looking at especially when looking at new people joining us, or especially new hires or juniors, interns, they all, at least right now, coming with this university experience, because I think it does prepare you quite a lot and offers you a room to explore different things, and lets you already develop games in team scenarios, creates these challenges that we face as well. So there's a lot of things that is just part of this education. The actual end result of the paper doesn't really bring anything special. Maybe it's a good thing to have when you want to move into a different country because of visas and stuff. But for actual the application process, it doesn't really matter that much of what grade you did get in a certain part, or what you actually did study, but rather what you made during your studies, what your how your portfolio will end up looking like, and what you can basically show that you understand the job and know how to work with people and stuff like this. I think this can be achieved in different manners. If you're working just on mods or of games, or also just playing around with Unity on your own, or with Unreal. There are things to get the same kind of knowledge, but at least for me personally, I think there are enough universities that didn't cost too much, when at least looking at Europe and Germany, that give you just a lot for more than just your education, but rather like lets you grow as a person. And that's at least somewhat helping. But when it comes down to the paper, it's not really a matter of, hey, you need to be a master something.
Yeah, I completely agree with what they say. Like it's not that important what, and even if you studied at all, it's kind of what you can bring to the table in an interview. I know that from my experience, soft skills are very highly valued. Being, hey, as Justin said, like being a team player, being able to communicate and have a specific mindset as well, like being able to take feedback and not take it as in like a negative thing, but do something really constructive with it. Like feedback is not in itself bad. It means like, hey, things could be different and better. Let's make it better. So if people understand that concept and can basically do something with it, that's like a soft skill that definitely is sought after for level designers. And yeah, in general, I would put those above hard skills. Yeah, also what Alina said for level design, I think it's very important that you have at least some feel for spatial design and user experience. You don't have to have a diploma in this at all. You can read up on books. There are a lot of great resources out there. So if you just spend some time just reading up on those, like checking out some, online tutorials and whatnot, you can actually learn all those things and bring that to the table. So yeah, usually when you're applying somewhere for a level designer, you will have to show some understanding of level design, and if you can create like a level or a mission. Sometimes it's only on paper, sometimes it's on, in an engine like Unity or Unreal. So yeah, basically if you have those things kind of figured out, like Unity and Unreal, like if you go for the very basics, that can be taught very quickly as well. And yeah, you will do great if you have the soft skills, basically.
Awesome. I hope your words will have inspired some future level designer right now.
Yeah, we can eat them.
Did you say need or eat?
Need.
I mean, we can also eat them in the company. Who knows?
We'll come to that later, to you needing level designers.
And food. Yeah, as you multiple times mentioned the portfolio and what to bring for your application. So do you have any tips to share with our audience how to both build a level design portfolio and also basically getting experience which you can use for your portfolio when you are just starting out and haven't gotten many games under your belt yet? So Justin, maybe you start.
Yeah, so first of all, I think one thing that I'm just a fan of is game jams. They can provide you with like a very diverse group, just like thinking or like tinkering with game ideas and creating something. The good thing is, and that's like my favorite part of it, that it has like a distinct ending, and you like actually have something at the end, even if it's like not great or if it's not like the best thing. You have something that is ending, and you're not like pushing your, oh, I can do it later. Like it's something that you just do. And that's like a huge, at least for me, it was a huge thing that I really enjoyed. Then otherwise, just in general, trying to get people on board and do like collabs on certain things. Also, as I said, like working on mods for games, like I'm not sure, like a Half-Life a mod for a specific level. The cool thing about mods is that there are already like an environment with all the mechanics that you need and like assets that you need to create full functioning levels. I personally never like did so much in modding back then. And right now, I have to say there are not that many like mods for let's say newer games, especially in like those big action adventure games. You won't be able to find a lot, but that's where then like Unity and Unreal comes in, where you can just like either play around with like the standard things that like Unity and Unreal provides themselves, or go into the asset store and find something that provides you with enough, let's say, stuff to at least work with something. So like a character controller, and then you can place some geometry and just iterating on those, how it feels. Give this to somebody else and ask them what they think of it. I think that's like a huge part where you can like grow. You shouldn't be shy about showing your work, even if it's just like your beginning, because we all, like all of us, been there. We all started out with just placing a cube somewhere, and that's where you like tend to grow and eventually have something to show in your portfolio, and not only like show the final piece. I think that's like a tip that I can get, that I can give. Not show the final result, but rather show how you got there, like what your design decisions were, what your preparations were. I think that is also helping to fill up your portfolio.
Yeah, and quickly in addition to that, because I agree with you, Justin, on what you said just now. But basically, if you don't know, like if you're just starting out and you don't even know where to start with anything, one thing that you can also do to make it a bit easier is like you can take a level that you really love from a game that you know and just rebuild it in Unreal Engine or Unity. They're very entry friendly. If it just comes to like placing blocks and you know spheres and whatnot on planes, like it's basically Lego. Just remake a level that you love and stop and think for a moment, why is it this way? Why is there like a church in the middle of the town? Oh, I can see it from all positions. Okay, yeah, this is a landmark. It's like easy to navigate around and making sure that, you know, it's visible from everywhere and stuff like that. So that could be like a very, very easy entry friendly thing you can do, just recreating levels that you love. But apart from that, yeah, basically what Justin said. Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally agree. I really want to support the aspect of look at levels and try to understand how they work, because this is a major part of what we are doing. Because if you're designing a new level space, it's not only about so there's a little bit more to it than strong visuals and just building cool places. It's also a lot about, okay, how is that actually functional? There are a lot of super interesting open resources, articles about level design, how it's actually working as open source content on the internet. A lot of companies also show analysis of their own games, how actually things are working out. And there's, as far as I know, to quickly recall it, there's quite a good amount of content coming from even companies as I don't know, Naughty Dog explaining how Last of Us levels work. There's a lot of content you can find under the hashtag Blocktober. Just recently have been done. That's kind of an initiative from that came up. I think like 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not sure entirely where with this hashtag instead of because a lot of stuff is going on in October. Actually, level designers are actually throughout the industry are showcasing not only the stuff they're working on, but also like a lot of comparisons. This is Blockout. This is final product. This is what we intended with them to do. And if you have just a general understanding of a lot of how the work technically functions, I think that this is actually a good base to get use to make that useful for your portfolio. And then actually seeing an if I just imagining right now, seeing an application of a level designer who's maybe just analyzing a level, but who can really say like, hey, I looked at this, and it's not ghost written from that article, but in general, I don't know, I'm applying for that company, and therefore I took the level, and I simply understand what they are doing, and I also see like, hey, this is my analysis of it, and this is what you did, but actually maybe I would have done this and that different. Is a super good thing if you do not have any experience with level design so far. Besides that, what is somewhat also very good and likely to see is actually, as the other tools have said, you want to make levels, so you should showcase in your portfolio that you're building levels. There are several ways to do that. This can be done on paper map. This can be done with Lego, but there is also a lot of free open source stuff. Unreal Engine has a super cool blockout editor, and it's free open source, so it's actually pretty easy to get into that stuff. There is a lot of free stuff simply from asset stores for Unity, for Unreal. Just get some stuff together and actually build levels, because this is what you're going to be doing in that job. So just show that. I mean, if you're working, for example, on student projects or in smaller teams, this is also something you can, of course, show, but it's not necessary. So the point is, it's not necessarily needed for you to develop an entire game to showcase your work as a level designer. You can do that completely on your own. You have several options to build levels, to showcase your understanding of spatial stuff and all that kind of thing completely on your own, and that's kind of nice about the level designer job. Still remark, later on, you will not be working on your own. You will be very collaborative, but to get your portfolio up to start, you can completely do this right now from scratch. There are many possibilities by now.
Yeah, those were some really good ideas and tips and hints. So I think some people who are interested in becoming a level designer may now have finally an idea where to start. Thank you for that. So obviously all of you were once career starters, and most, if not all of you, have worked with interns or career starters. So based on your experience, is there a common mistake or misconception about the industry you often see in career starters, or maybe even had yourself? Maybe Alina, you start?
Yeah, actually there are a lot. Okay, where to start and where to make it short and where to not threaten anyone to get into game industry, because we are cool people. I think what's important for me to say, let's say it like that, is it is a cool job. It is a cool industry in general. It's a lot about fun and games, of course, but what is sometimes important, what I sometimes encounter, but what is always important is we are actually working in a job. So we get paid for that. We have a contract, we have hours. So a lot of the things we're doing is bound to fun, but it's also a pretty serious business. I use sometimes, and I think from what I get, what my feeling is about when I look at applications over the last years, is that people are already very professional when they attend to work at us overall, which I think is a very nice development. But sometimes you still have some people where you just get the impression of, I've played so many games, I know how every game works, and that's why I should work for your company. And that's somewhat kind of the people sadly we don't need, because we are all, of course, interested in games, but it is a serious business where it's not about who played the most hours in the game, who have seen the most stuff, but it's about understanding your job field, the serious stuff about it, and at the end of the day, getting stuff done, which is, of course, at the end, a product that makes fun, that is for players, but we don't need people. That sounds super harsh. I don't want to have to phrase it like that, but I don't have better words right now. But we actually need people who understand the different restraints of the job and how it all works and connects, because it's a little bit more than just building a space, just programming some stuff, just drawing some pictures as a concept artist. Yeah, it is a business that is that evolves a lot around a lot of people working on one project, working together, getting things together done as a team, and a lot of those things are sometimes also really unpersonal. So I think we had that earlier in the talk about, you know, letting your babies go and all that kind of stuff. All this is really crucial, and sometimes you see that people expect it a little bit to be a little bit different, to get into a company and know a lot of things how it should work better because they've seen how it should not work in games, or that's their opinion. But for a lot of things, there are reasons why they are that way, and their flexibility, understanding, and personal space for development is very important for us. And if all those kind of things are not so much your thing, you should rethink to get into a different kind of work field.
Yeah, I think like add to the kill your darlings thing. It's definitely happening all the time. Like just from personal experience, like your project can be canceled, your mission can be canceled, your stuff can be like taken over by someone else, and all of that. Like you need to be flexible with that. You need to like accept and continue. Obviously, like it may feel a bit harsh sometimes, or like you invested a lot into like certain things, and you would love to get it out there to get like people play that, but for reasons it won't work out. But that's also part of the job. I think like one other thing that I want to mention that keeps on like some, I don't know why, but it keeps being like a part, or like keeps being like a huge misconception about what we are doing actually. And that is, yeah, there is no idea guy, there's no idea position in our industry. Obviously we have all great ideas and ideas that get into the game, but there is no position that says like, I want to have this thing in the game, and that's it, and now everybody's doing it. Even like a direct, like a creative direction or like game direction position does not just say, okay, this is like how it is and that's it, but rather like that's the vision, that's the thing that I want to direct towards, and then like the team is actually trying to get there and taking on like multiple ideas from all different like departments and trying to find out what's working and what does not work, and finding out how to tweak certain things. But there's no just one guy standing somewhere and saying, I want to have a double jump in my I don't know, narrative, a realism game or whatever. So yeah. Oh, you're muted.
Oh yeah, quote of the quarantine. Hey, you're muted. Yes, I basically agree with has been said so far here. I can add a few small things, which is like one thing I didn't fully expect is that as a level designer, you're a very central person to the entire development of levels and missions and game spaces. So you're basically the glue, and people will toss stuff at you, and you have to be able to also deal with that. That's something that I didn't personally fully understand when I started. I thought it was just, hey, I'm gonna make environments and I'm gonna make spaces, and that's kind of it. That was like my conception of it when I started. So be prepared that there's like a quite big social aspect to it as well. And people will also do stuff like, hey, you require a certain tech or certain assets and stuff that may not fit well. So you're kind of like the stakeholder of the levels and the missions you're making. And sometimes you will have to be able to say, no, this does not fit. We need to redo this. Let's go to project manager or whatever producer and request some extra time because this is just not working out. So yeah, that aspect is just definitely a pretty big part, actually turns out to be. So you need to be able to deal with people, talk to people, explain problems and why things work or don't work. And the ability to say no is also very important, because that's sometimes pretty difficult. Everyone, as Justin said, in this industry is very creative, and ideas come from left and right. Like, it's not just game designers doing things. There are coders that have the best ideas, and all we do is just seeing them to fruition and just making them the best possible thing as possible. So that's definitely a big thing. Sometimes you just have to be able to say, no, I see where you're coming from, but it doesn't quite fit in this level, and keep that idea. Sometimes in the future, months later, years later, you'll take that idea and it becomes something great for something different. But yeah, that's something definitely that you have to keep in mind. And then another misconception that I personally feel like is kind of out there with a smaller group is that some people seem to think that level design is like an environment artist. It's not the same. As a level designer, you don't need to be an artist. You know this meme where you have like, oh, draw a circle, draw like a couple more circles, and then draw the owl. You know that meme? You're basically the one drawing the circles. And then you're like, this is an owl. It's 3 circles. And you give it to an artist and they make it into a pretty owl. I cannot do that, but that's something that I also wish that I knew before I started, or just like realize this. You don't have to be good at making art or anything. If you can draw just basic lines and sketch out a map with some lines that are the flow and whatever, that's enough. It's like you're, like the architect of the virtual world. And in some places, not ones that I've worked at personally, in some places it overlaps a bit. So level designers are a bit more of level artists as well. But usually those are separate functions from my experience. How is it like for you guys, Justin and Alina? Have you?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, if you're like focusing on level design and you're like going through YouTube and find those speed level design videos, don't click on them. They
Those
are
are
not
the
level
ones.
design.
Yep, that's not level design.
It's just like they're like labeled as level design, but actually they are creating maybe beautiful pieces, like cool vistas and everything, but it's not like how we work. It's way more about like our intentions and like our like iteration on spaces than placing trees in a beautiful manner. But that's also like fair game. Like we need also pretty good level artists. So if that's more what you want to do, then go for that. It's definitely a great thing to do. But yeah, for us, it's also like pretty separated. Obviously, you influence the level art. The level art is influencing the level design as well. Like for us, we like for Iron House, we're working with a system that creates like procedural generated foliage and terrain adjustments and stuff like that. And that made us just pretty, let's say, fast in creating those environments and placing like actual trees, but we were not focusing on how the actual tree like is positioned and these kind of things. That was more the job than of the level artist.
I think what's important to mention is that also be prepared for the fact that the position, and I think that's valid for any position that is located in the field of design, so game design, systems design, I don't know, combat designer, quest designer, mission designer, level designer, all those design things in general, I have the feeling very much differ from how each company handles it. So if you applicate for one position as level designer at one company, it can very much differ from your work that you would be doing at another company as level designer. So for example, to the staff, the people they both just said, I for myself on a daily basis can only partly agree. Majorly on a high level, yes, but when it comes to the stuff of details, it sometimes differ in, okay, who has which degree of responsibility when it comes to what does a designer do, what does an artist do, how they collaborate together. That's really very highly depending on the company you're working at, of course, but also at the same time for the project you're working on, because different projects have different needs, and therefore your actual work, the stuff you're doing and building can simply very much differ, and therefore all I can say is or would have liked to know what was different from what I not expected, and to give that with on the way is really also try to get into the company or the job you're looking for. What are they doing? What am I going to expect there? Because if you're playing random shenanigans, but if you're playing for a level design position at a mobile game studio, which is clearly doing, I don't know, a top-down browser game, it will be very different from the work that you will be doing when you apply for a company that's doing third-person action RPG games, as we are doing them, for example. It just differs because of the project, because of the company, because of the size of the team, the structures that are in there. So yeah, somewhat keep in mind what you want to kind of do, and then try to choose and get also into and be confident when you have, for example, an interview going on, and ask about the stuff. Okay, what is my job going to be here? You don't have to be very much offensive, but the more you know about the job you're applying, the better it also is for the company, as well as for you to say, does it fit to me?
All right.
Thank you so much. Oh, I'm so sorry, Annika.
Coordination. I just wanted to ask one final question before we go over to the Q&A part with the remaining chat questions. So you in part already answered it, but is there anything else you wished you had known before entering the industry, or when you just started out? Maybe Justin.
I think in general, like from a broader perspective, the industry, I'd say you should know we are, like, first of all, very casual. I think like everybody's talking everybody by like the first names. There's no like Mr. or Mrs. going on, at least like what I experienced, and I think that counts for almost everybody, especially like at events and such. So we're pretty chill and pretty casual on that regard. But I think Alina already mentioned it's still work. It's still something where you need to take care of your own mental health as well. There are like things that can be quite hard weeks when it's about to go into like a certain milestone, or like your release is coming up, and it can be quite hard. There are studios out there that have a lot of like what we call crunch, so heavy phases of overtime and consistent overtime. And like we're definitely not doing that. And like I personally, I also think it's not a great way of dealing with your people. But be aware of that. As been said, like ask those questions in interviews, how like studios are dealing with these situations. And yeah, be aware of what you actually feel like. If there's a problem where you feel like I cannot handle this anymore, it's just too much like overtime or whatever, or there's like you don't want to stay for so long, because that's totally fine, and like everybody should be like that should be respected. And your leads should be in a position where they should help you with like if certain things don't work out, if you think like your task is something that you need to do, and like you maybe miscalculated what you estimated or whatever, just be open and talk about these things. It's just getting worse if you're not telling people that you're not able to finish stuff, and that's why I'm saying like be open. That's a pretty big thing that new hires should get in their head. And also, if you don't understand certain things, ask what your task like is actually entailing, and what you need to know before jumping to conclusions and like do stuff that is not actually what you're supposed to do. Yeah, that's, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. On the estimation part, estimating how much something will take you is hard. It really is.
Yes.
And it will always, it's almost never like on point. It'll always be, sometimes it's a bit quicker, but sometimes there's like a major bomb, like, oh yeah, we cannot have, I don't know, we wanted to have a flying level, but the player can actually not fly. We cut that, so you have to rework everything. There are always like big bombs like that happening. And it's okay to estimate something and it doesn't work anymore. Just talk to production. As soon as you feel like, this is off, I'm not gonna make it, or I feel stressed out, talk to production. This is very natural and normal. Yeah, I've been through those bouts at the start of level design, like, oh God, I said like a week. I'm at the end of the week. I'm halfway there. No, just talk. It's completely normal. That's something, yeah, that I wish I knew maybe as well at the start, and maybe not something that I wished I knew at the start, but something that I've learned and I think is very interesting is there's a big difference between small studios, medium studios, and full-scale AAA studios. I think the smaller team you go, the more hats you're gonna have to wear, which can be stressful in itself, but it means that you will get to do a lot. If you're a team of 5, that means like 1/5 of the game is yours. But then again, in AAA, like really big studios, you get to make really vast and high profile games, which is also like a boost of motivation, like to go in every day. As for me personally, I really love medium-sized studios a lot because it means that you still get a lot of agency of the game. Like you get to do a lot of stuff, and you can say, okay, if I was not here, this would not have been the same game, which is just generally a really great feeling. But you have enough people still to make the things you want to do. Because often in like really tiny studios or indie developers of small teams, they sometimes want to do major things, but you need people to make really big worlds, for instance. So yeah, just keep that in mind. In big AAA studios, usually you laser focus on one level, one mission sometimes. Make this as awesome as you can, but that's it. And then for smaller studios, it's like, okay, you're gonna have like 1/3 of the entire game, do all the missions for 1/3 of the game, which is like, okay, let's go. So yeah, that's basically it for me.
Yeah, I can only majorly agree to the aspect of overtime topic is important for industry because there is I don't want to be too bad about it, but there is sometimes a problem with getting things done, and overtime is never okay. It happens in a lot of jobs, but it is not something that should happen ever, and it should be handled like that. So just be very aware to how your company is potentially handling that forefront, because overtime, it can sometimes happen when you are about to hit the goal, when you cannot make it, all those kind of stuff. These are actually follow-up problems from overscoping, technical. I mean, we are building software, so technical solutions cannot always be provided because you're building new stuff from time to time. Whatever comes up there, it can happen, but it should never be mandatory or be treated as a given. That should be restrained on you as a resource, as a human employee. So be very, very aware of how does the company handle that. And yeah, it's just super important because this damages the complete industry on the other side. If we or anyone supports companies, and gladly we do not have, I'm not aware of any currently, but in general, this is a super important topic. Be careful what they are like wanting from you, because at the end, coming back to a full circle, it is a job. It's not your life. wow, that's a bang idea, and that sounds very mean now. We should change to something where the job makes fun again.
We are.
It is fun. It is fun, a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for your input. Actually, you've successfully navigated all of Annika's and my questions now. And we're moving on to our wonderful questions from the live chat. There were a few more during our live time here. The first one is, what do you recommend level designers if they have to explore new genres, especially when they're working on a project whose direction they're unfamiliar with? I don't know, Isabelle, have you ever been in this situation? And if so, how did you handle it?
I would say play just, if that's something you want to go for, just play games in that genre. That's where I would start. Just play games, the good and the bad. See why the good are good games and why they're highly valued. Like check out maybe their Metacritic, although that can be like a slippery slope as well sometimes. But like know what makes a good game in that specific genre good, and also have a look at games that absolutely failed in that genre and have a look like, hey, why is that? Why did they fail? What did they not do right? So that's usually where I start. And then another thing you can do is, this is mostly what we covered before already, just make some designs on paper or on in the engine, just some blockouts of levels, and get into that headspace, like why would I do it this way? Like, hey, am I going shooter? Okay, does it have cover or does it not have cover? That's a really big difference. If it has cover, it's going to be a bit more slow paced. But if we want to have like a really fast paced action shooter, then we remove cover. That basically pushes the player always forward. We cannot take cover, we have to take action. So it changes the perspective of the player as well. So just sit down, play the games of the genre of the target you want to do, and then just take notes like why things are designed in a certain way. I think this is especially helpful if you want to switch genres.
Yeah, I can totally agree. I actually like had that when I switched like from one project to Iron Harvest to our RTS. There was a lot of like things that I like from a personal perspective as a gamer myself, like didn't had like in my repertoire, so to say. I wasn't like playing that much RTS games, and yeah, I basically did what Isabelle said. It's definitely coming down to what they are doing and like trying to understand what's going on. Obviously, there are a lot of like still elements that you can like that are still applicable like on a high level, and you can also, that's also a cool thing, see if like certain elements of different genres work in like this genre as well, and like that was also part of my like bachelor thesis, where I thought like, are there elements of action like action games and their bosses that I can use for a boss in like a real-time strategy game. And that's also like things that you can just explore as like a designer in, I'd say like any genre. Take on what you can and like gain that knowledge and gain that like library of things you can think about.
Yeah, I think to maybe make it a little bit more general, I think the key is, and that sometimes, at least we encountered that we underestimated. And I think it's not only if you're changing genre, but it's in general if you're building a new game. Just at the start of a project, you need to invest time into research. That's it, and that is what the both of them said, all very true and very fitting. But at the end, it comes down to exactly this. If you've not done this before, you need to research for that. It's not different from anything you do from from scratch and do not know about. You have to be able and be granted time to get yourself into that, to educate yourself into that, and to research on that topic, what we want to do, how is it done, and yeah, that simply needs time, and that needs to be evaluated in the design or concept phase, or even put it in forefront and say we make a research and development phase to see how things are actually working, because yeah, if you don't know, you have to learn.
So someone asked, apart from popular game engines, do you have any tools you'd recommend? Yeah, Isabelle?
I think the engines are like the biggest ones. Everything else can so easily be taught. Just yeah, we work with a source control usually. Perforce is very popular. I've also worked with source tree in the past. It basically keeps everyone on the same revision of the game, and also if you submit something that breaks everything, you should actually playtest always, but it happens still. Then basically you can still take the previous revision and roll back a specific map or whatever was broken. So I would say that. Some smaller tools like wireframe tools can be very useful for any game designer, really, to map out the flow, how you go from start to end of a mission, for instance. And that can be anything from like Balsamic, Visio, even Photoshop. You can draw it by hand, honestly, as long as you can share it with others and it's legible, that's enough. So I think those tools are most important. I know some people are also looking for like Maya or 3D Max, but I personally really like blocking out inside the engine already, being in Unreal Engine or in Unity. Both of their tools are fairly easy to grasp, and you can learn like in the same day. Like you can build a few levels in a day, very roughly. So that should be fine. So I would not be too worried. Yeah. That's from my end.
Yeah, I think, or Alina, go ahead.
No, you can also, I don't mind. Okay. Yeah, I think in general it's as Isabelle just said, if you know one project a program and how it kind of works, you can get rather easily into another. So of course each engine has its own things, how it's working, but if you have somewhat understanding of how a game engine in general works, that's good. Then you also can get into other game engines. Programs is something you can actually learn. I personally think it's beneficial to be at least to some degree proficient with any kind of 3D program. This is depending on the project you're working on, because if your project is in 2D, you don't need to be able to do stuff with 3D potentially. But just speaking from the games I'm working on, and this then therefore can be any kind of thing. It can be a level editor, it can be Maya, it can be Blender, which is open source. It doesn't matter that much, but it's mainly about knowing those programs help you actually to work out, to block out, to do the things, so to support your spatial design. And there it's helpful to actually work with the tools that you will encounter in your job later on. But then also, of course, as said, 2D programs as like, I don't know, Photoshop or whatsoever, basic knowledge of that is pretty good. Basic knowledge of scripting is, or at least an understanding for that is to a certain degree also important. You will encounter that. Any kind of documentation tool also highly depends on the company what stuff you're needing then later, but you know, having worked with Word will help you. Yeah, that's mostly it. So all of that just helps, and then at the end depends on the programs the company is using, and you can learn all of them. And you will, at least I can tell from my company, but I'm pretty sure the others will agree. If you're not proficient in a tool yet, don't be scared of that. They will grant you the time to onboard you for that, because most likely you will not be measured in how good you are with this specific tool of software, but rather like, what are you able to do with that? And that you can show also with other tools, and the tools you can always learn.
Yeah, I think that's important. Like, you should understand that in most cases, obviously, we want to have someone that can fulfill this task and like ticks, let's say, the boxes on like the general level of experience or what they can actually work. But it's more about like then the social skills, or like the human part of like an applicant, and the rest can be taught. Like switching like to another engine can be taught, and also like other soft skills, hard skills. On the other side, one thing for like the documentation, or like working with like Microsoft tools or like other Office tools, writing concise documentation is something very important as well. Feel comfortable with, in most situations, feel comfortable with English, especially if you're going to like studios that are more international. I think that's like a huge thing that you need to do, like talking in English, but also writing in English. As I said, like writing concise things and not like bullet points and like not huge paragraphs of your lore that you want to explain. Yeah, I think also what's interesting is that you should understand how to give and receive feedback. It's also like more a soft skill, but it's definitely a very valuable one for level designers.
Awesome. I hope our audience took notes when you recommended all those wonderful skills and tools they should have. Just one last short and sweet question, actually. Someone asked whether you had to downsize your first level, and if so, how much? Isabelle, you've got a slight smile on your face. Would you like to share your experience?
Downsize my first level. If that's a yes/no question, right? Or is it like, what was the first level I had to downsize? Because that list is. But actually, the first levels I worked at as a junior, like very entry level, were already blocked out. So luckily, I didn't have to downscale too much there. So that was already kind of set in stone. And that's how usually the process goes. Like, as a junior, usually you get a white box or a gray box, and you help to push that through the rest of the stages, and then you get to white box a bit. I'm not saying that all companies will be like this. Sometimes they just, okay, white box something, for sure, but that's not how it went for me. The first levels I worked with were not downscaled, luckily, because of that. But then later on, as I got more senior, I got to make more levels from the ground up. It happens. It's like, oh yeah, I have like this huge idea. It's like, no, we don't have time. You don't get no new assets. Like, create something with the assets we have. Like, oh, but yeah, I had a few things, but it always works out. Like, just talk to your 3D artists and just other people, and you can still make something awesome out of it. So I don't really have a cool story on this one, sadly enough, but maybe Justin has.
At least like on our side, it's we do want to like get like the people with some, like, let's say, bigger task of like creating maps and such, even like juniors. And there's a tendency that a lot of people just have like very huge maps, and like the distances between certain things are just like so long that you need to run for a lot of time with your character, for example. Yeah, it's definitely an iteration point where you like always tell them go into engine and check your scaling as soon as possible, and place reference like assets for you to actually understand, oh, if this like building is like 2 times the size of your character, maybe you need to adjust certain things. This door is not a door, it's like a gate, it's like a huge thing, maybe you need to adjust that as well. All these kind of things. I mean, it comes down also to like keeping to your metrics and understand what your metrics are, and then use them consistently. But yeah, it definitely happens that like juniors of ours of our teams were creating maps where it was so huge and there were so many like empty spaces because they weren't like focusing on that, but rather on something else, that then we need to like scale those down and see if we can get every like gameplay element that we thought about in a really concise manner, and maybe cut some parts because it just like was too big from a scope, or just cut them because of like a more clear image of what the experience should be like.
My answer is yes, I had to. Later we upscaled it again. That sometimes happens as well, but yeah, it happens. It's mostly it's often bound to yeah, you build something, okay, we cannot make it, we have to cut something, okay. It most likely you do not downscale it a lot, but it's rather like you get rid of certain areas and you cut it, and then it gets smaller in the end because you can't do all the stuff that you want to do. But yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, to basically add to that, I remember we once had like a decision like, okay, we're gonna double the speed of the player. Fun times for all level designers. Okay, let's rework all the levels.
Yeah, sometimes
That's
we
huge.
so we try to nail down the metrics for the players, what they can do. I don't know, jumping, running, speed, distances, all that kind of stuff very early. Then someone encounters, oh, but it feels better if we make it this way, and then every level designer and level artist is like, don't do that, don't do that. And it's like, yeah, but now all the size difference are like 10 meters off, and we're like, amazing, we have to change all the stuff. Happens also.
All right, thank you so much for sharing. We've got one last question for you, and that is if there are any open positions in your level design department at your company right now, especially for interns or entry-level positions, and if so, where can our audience find them? Justin, how about your company?
So yeah, we like finished Iron Harvest last year. We were like developing a lot of like additional content, but we are also working on new projects. Right now we have 3 projects in line, and we are searching for a lot of people in all kinds of departments. And we are also looking for level designers. We are working on a third-person action game right now, which has 2 positions out there, which is a junior level designer and a senior level designer. We also have a senior level designer for our fantasy RPG that we are developing right now. And yeah, I think like it's getting quite hard right now with the pandemic and all, but in general we also take interns like anytime. If it fits, then it fits. Obviously we need to make sure that like it works and that we can onboard the interns. And but yeah, we're always open for new people. And you can find all of these on our web site at kingart-games.com, and then find our jobs there. And yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Isabelle, Alina, are there any open positions that might fit this description?
For us at Deep Silver FISHLABS, there are currently no level design positions open, but you're always free to send up an unsolicited application. That's always really handy to send out. So you can find our website on dsfishlabs.com/careers. /vacancies. Apologies. And there you can see all the job openings currently there. Yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, kind of similar for us. So currently we're not actively having an open position for a level designer, but at the same time, that does not mean that we do not take level designers. It's a little bit, as Isabelle said, don't hesitate to send applications. We also have a passage on our website. It's deck13.com. There you can find under jobs, careers, all the stuff. And there's also always the possibility to send an application regardless if there's an open position or not. And if we find someone who we are fond of, who looks good, who would be a good fit for the team, we also always look for people, even though we are not actively searching right now for the position we are actually in need of, but good people are always wanted. So don't hesitate to send it. Regardless, interns we are taking regularly. So also same for that, simply apply. Sometimes it also needs to be fit with the schedule of the university. The thing for interns for us is we can sadly only take interns that have it as a must-have in the university career path, to phrase it like that. So actually no internship if not required for your studies, but if so, it pretty often has to match specific timeframes for the university schedule. So getting into that early, knowing beforehand, I don't know, at this point of time, I would like to take the internship. Simply send us your stuff now, and then we can see if it fits and if we can make it work.
Great. Thank you so much. I think this concludes our panel. So just really a huge thanks to the three of you. You were an absolutely wonderful panel, and we really learned a lot about your craft tonight. To all of you out there, this was the last edition of our Game Starter for 2021, but we really can't wait to continue this series in the new year. If you have any suggestion on which topics you would like to hear about, or on which we should do a panel, feel free to give us a shout on our Discord or tweet at us, or we are literally everywhere. So far, we hope we'll see you at our GameSlive graduation and our portfolio slam game art. But if not, we wish you a happy holiday season and a happy new year already. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye. See you soon.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. What's fun?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much.